Now, what is emotions? It's not how I think, it's how I feel. And so you can know that Jude or Becky's energy is running on fumes or running on empty when I begin to overreact because the salt shaker is in the pantry instead of the table.
Right.
Hey everybody, welcome to the House of Roberts podcast, the podcast where we bring you into our loud, crazy Christian home to encourage, equip, and inspire yours. As always, Michael here with my beautiful wife, Gabrielle. And we have a special guest today, Gabrielle.
So special.
If you're watching on YouTube, you already see he's our senior pastor, our personal senior pastor, Pastor Jude Fouquier. And we're so grateful for him to be on this with us. Pastor Jude, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We want to talk about family. And we've had a lot of conversations, even as you've coached me and Gabrielle on our journey of kind of stepping out into this journey of like encouraging families, strengthening families. We've talked a lot about family. We've talked a lot about the importance of it in today's culture. I know you have a lot of strong thoughts about the importance of family in society, in culture, in churches. And so I wanted you just for a moment, just to speak to that. Like when we say family, like what comes to mind, or what would you say to that?
I would say when I think of family, I love reading the Bible, and I never read the Bible to be a pastor or a theologian. I just wanted a conversation with God. And as we read in the very beginning words of Scripture, in the Torah, in the book of Genesis, the first institution God creates is marriage. And I think the thing that I love about you and Gabrielle, Michael, is your unity, your love, your marriage with one another. It is so attractive. I think it's compelling. I think our culture, our world needs couples like you. Then the second institution, and it's divine, and as long as time exists, marriage will exist. And it's interesting how culture is always trying to define something that God created, and that's divine. And the next is family. And I believe that great families come through beautiful, solid, satisfying marriages that are complementary. And the synergy that comes from you, Michael and Gabrielle, again, it has the power to create a family. And I would say that what our nation needs, what California needs, what our generation needs is family. I am thoroughly convinced that our government, our churches, our communities, our municipalities, the foundation is family. But without a good marriage, families begin to erode and they become dysfunctional. And it seems like they're spending a lot of time in counseling. And from the very beginning, when we met in Iowa, I loved... Oh, did I say Iowa? Oh my good. Oh,
Iowa.
Okay.
Ohio.
It's
Okay.
like one of those Midwestern states.
Yeah.
Because, wait, can I just say, Ohio has produced more incredible people than any state.
Even Canada.
Yeah, probably God knows more than Canada. Oh my, did I say Iowa? Wait, what?
You totally knew.
That's not even a Freudian slip because I haven't even been thinking about Iowa. Ohio. Is that your love for one another, and that, again, that synergistic best friends. And I think that's what I love about you and Michael. Even with House of Roberts, it's coming out of a collaboration. And then seeing when Ford, then the girls and crew came about as a result of your love. And I would say one of your ministries, or I want to say another word, one of your missions for this world, for your imprint on this day, is your best friendship, which is now really joined with an inseparable bond called holy matrimony. And when we mean holy, we're not meaning stuffy or even religious, but a spiritual, beautiful, covenantal bond which produces amazing children. And the way you parent, I love. And I think the church needs it. I believe the world needs it. Schools need it, that we parent our children well. And you guys really do. I remember, because I was a youth pastor in the 80s, Bart Simpson told Homer Simpson because he was saying, "Oh, we need to change the TV. We need to turn the TV off." I don't know if that's how Homer Simpson talked. That's my imitation
Sound exactly
of
like
him. No, it did not. I don't know. It kind of sounds like someone from Mississippi, but I'm from Louisiana.
It sounds southern.
Yeah. And Bart responding said, "How can you judge the television since it raised us more than you did?" And they used to call that the electronic babysitter. And I would say Michael and Gabrielle leave nothing to chance. Out of their beautiful best friendship, which came covenant and matrimony, is family. And family is eternal. And I love the way you parent. I believe the whole nation, I want to address churches, leaders in churches. We could have ministries that touch the world, but have homes that are so broken that it undoes everything we did with ministry. And I believe family is the only foundation. And Paul said that. He said, "Rule your house well."
Yeah.
Why did he say well? And it's like, well, to me, is like whole, fun, eternal, has faith in it. Anyway, to me, that's attractive. And I love that. And I have 6 grandkids. My sons are 35, 33. Jake will soon be 31. They're all married. And I would want them to raise my grandchildren the way you're raising your 4 children. But to me, way before the rudiments of building and creating, the home you've created is staggering. And it's a pattern and it's a model. You know what came before that? It's what I first fell in love with you two, was your union and your marriage. And so many people are trying to define marriage. And it's like, go look at Michael and Gabrielle. Then you get to see what it should always be and should have always been.
Wow, I love that. You said something, I think it's really easy to point the finger, I think in family and in marriage, at like why my family's failing, why my marriage is failing is because my boss asks me to work too much, or because the church isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing and helping raise our kids in the things of God. I think it's really easy to get in a habit of pointing fingers. And really, I know even for Mike and I in our journey, even as of late, as God's just been opening our eyes in a very sovereign way to this topic and this mission, as you're saying, we had a moment where the Lord was like, no, you need to look at yourself. If you don't like something that is being produced out of your home, if you don't like something that's happening, the fruit of what's happening in your marriage, there's nobody else to blame.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
right.
every other external thing is only whatever. It's cherry. It's just external. There's
right.
something internally that has to be addressed.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so sometimes we give external things way too much power, or we put an unrealistic expectation on external things to do something for our marriage, for our homes, when really God's given us all the authority.
Right.
He's given us the authority for our marriage to lead it well with the help of the Holy Spirit. And he's given us the greatest authority over our children to raise them well.
Right.
But what happens is we do dish it out to a million things. They're watching too much TV. They're on their tablets. Their tablets are wasting. They're in a million different activities. Right. And so it becomes dysfunctional in that way.
Yes.
Because although some of those things, external things, they're not bad. It's not bad for your kids to watch TV. It's not bad for them to be in extracurriculars. But if they're raising your kids more than you're going to have a dysfunctional product.
Right.
Right?
And I'm wondering if that dysfunctional product is a result of a dysfunctional matrimony.
Absolutely.
And I'm just wondering. And I think if someone say, why would you choose or want to be involved or attracted to the House of Roberts? It's Michael and Gabrielle. And before Ford, before the girls, before crew, it was Michael and Gabrielle. And I personally think the only foundation for a lifelong, I want to use these words, a lifelong, satisfying, fulfilling, fun marriage is best friendship. And my definition of that is they know me at my worst, my darkest, but they love me to the galaxies.
Yeah.
And that's Michael and Gabrielle. These two are beyond compatible. You're both not, why did I say Iowa? Iowa, no, Iowa, Ohio.
We're
But
Buckeyes, Pastor
yeah, I
Jude.
know you're Buckeyes and I'm LSU.
I
So
know it.
I don't want my
I
bitter
know
root
it.
to come up. But I think it's beyond even both of you being Italian, pasta, Ohio. No, and even I want to say something, even beyond Christ himself, even beyond church itself. And those are like the center and the core of our being. It's truly two people who made their best friend their life partner or best friends, fell in love. And I want to say, wow, the soul connection of Michael and Gabrielle, I think our nation needs. I really, really do. I think sometimes like one party is the dad, the other party is the mom, but they're arch enemies and they're blaming all the dysfunction from legislation to this on the external family. And it's like, no, come together and your union is attractive. And I personally, I love the way you do family. I like the way you raise your kids. Yes.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, God's a God of order, right? So you're just mentioning that order in which he created creation, what the institutes he established. And so, we've said before, like many times what gets marriages and families in trouble isn't necessarily sometimes bad things, it's good things in the wrong order. And so there's that divine order where like it is God's first in my life, our marriage is second, our children come third. But sometimes it can get jumbled. All of a sudden, sometimes job finds its way in that top three. Sometimes kids like to jump the marriage, and all of a sudden, the thing that we connect and bond over the most is the kids. It becomes easy to become kid centric, and so it doesn't happen right away, but over time, good things in the wrong order lead to bad things.
100%.
Right. So you don't just wake up one morning and go, I think I'm just going to wreck my life today by getting in an affair or I'm going to do something foolish. It's something has been out of order for a minute. And I think that's one of those things. There's problems to solve in life and then there's tensions to manage. And I think, like you said, keeping your relationship with your wife or your husband healthy and growing, you never arrive. Like it's always something you're constantly having to like, whoa, do we check in lately? Like, how are we doing? Because I feel like we're struggling a little bit right now, or new job came in, or another kid happened, or whatever, something took place that would kind of veer away the priorities to be adjusted. It's like there's those things you have to constantly be working on. It's so that you stay healthy, because healthy marriages produce healthy kids. And so there's a lot of debatable things of how to raise kids certain ways, but I think one of the most consistent things that we could say, no, this will always produce healthy kids is healthy marriages.
I believe that.
And that's has to be the foundation of that.
Yes.
And you said something I think is so good, right? You talked about that covenantal thing. We've had this, me and her, Gabrielle and I have talked about this. We felt like a good marriage is actually one of the best ways to witness to your children or explain like relationship with God. Because they're seeing a covenantal relationship in play, and now all of a sudden helps them kind of understand the covenantal relationship someday they'll have with God. Because sometimes it's maybe struggle or hard to help them like see like, okay, no, it's God and you love him and he loves you and he's committed to you forever. And it's like, no, look at how mom and dad live, right? And look how we love each other and how we forgive one another. And it kind of serves as a witness sometimes, you know what I mean, to your kids. Like, this is how you respond to God, you know? One of the things, okay, so marriage is being one of those things where like, hey, we've got to make sure this is healthy and it's going to produce. We've had this conversation a couple times, and that's the idea. I think one of the things that hurts families a lot too in marriages is pace. You've talked about 100%. The pace of life. We've had those conversations where, I've heard you talk about, man, pace is one of those things I think I would have tweaked a little bit. There's a lot of people that listen to our podcast and they struggle with pace. They struggle with like how to rhythm a life. And I'd love for you just to kind of speak to them a little bit on that.
Michael and Gabrielle, Becky and I, and my wife is beautiful. And what's cool, we're similar. You guys both came, not Iowa, but Ohio. We both were raised in Louisiana. So our culture was similar. And we both were driven. I mean, Becky was a university cheerleader, graduated with honors. I think my junior year, I was looking at all the extracurricular activities I was involved with at university. 15.
Oh my gosh.
15.
I'm not shocked.
Missions, all these things. And it's like, you're not here
Wow.
for these activities. You're here to be a student, and your GPA is gonna determine your launching from what is called university. And I think both Jude and Becky came together as high achievers. And we, throughout the years, I want to say for both of us, and we're wired very differently, we're good time managers. Now, she's more random a little bit than I am, but yet I have my own style and challenges. Sure. We both knew how to manage a schedule. But I think if I had it to do over again, and this is going to be a word that's in the cul-de-sac of pace, I don't think Jude and Becky were good energy managers.
Really good.
And meaning where, we did 50 things in a week or 100 things in a day. Our kids begin to reflect us. 1 year, the boys, we have 3 sons, were in 11 different sports. All 3 in baseball, all 3 in basketball. John and Jake were in football. Jude was on a select soccer team, the regular soccer team. Jude wrestled. I mean, it was like, and we're building a church. We have a job.
Marriage, all
and so look, we did that as far as a schedule. You could look and say, man, these people were incredible. Let me tell you where we failed. We succeeded at time management, but energy management for the dad, the mom, the couple, and their children is very important, where by the time we would get home after all that, we gave each other really the leftovers, and our emotional energy was less than it was created to be. If I had to do that over again, you could use the word pace, and I think that's a great word, but someone may have a faster pace if you're running a marathon than one may run a 10-minute mile, another one a 6. I want to use this energy. And where I remember when my John he graduated from 8th grade, we're looking at his yearbook. We're waiting for Jude or Jake to come. And it's Becky and I, and all the things people wrote. John, you're amazing. I would have never made it through Algebra 1 without you. And it went on, and I go, John, I don't know this person. Where is he?
Who is this person?
You know what he said? He says, Dad, this is a word he said, I use all my energy at school. And by the time you pick us up or mom picks us up, I'm empty.
Wow.
And when he said that, and I thought, that is how we are driving home from 3 to 10 at night, from homework to projects to dinner to clean up to brush your teeth to talk, to have a spiritual conversation, an everyday conversation, for anything. And we were running on fumes. We were running on fumes. And I think what I would beg to say to any family that has children, especially young children or teenagers, where's your energy and where are your fumes? And I would say John just married Becky and I. By the time we got home, we started off like Jesus, Michael. Oh my goodness, I was so Mr. Fruit of the Spirit. But as we drove home from that last wrestling practice, that last soccer practice, and we're driving as a very successful family living on the West Coast, there were fumes. And we gave each other our second best. I want to say it another way. We gave each other leftovers. And if I had it to do over again, I think it is pace. I would say, where's your energy? I think everyone has a different capacity. You could remember if you go to a coffee shop, you could get a venti, a tall or a short. I think it's up to the unique individual to say, hey, I think it would be better. I am an 8-ounce glass, and I don't want to get home and have no more ounces. And you could be a 16-ounce glass and still go home empty. I would say I would have done that over again. I would have done energy over again. And if you think about it, like whatever your job is, it doesn't matter if you work for the church or not. Your job, culture, life, friends, surprise things that happen, it's all taking energy from you. And then you get home. I think I would have reserved energy for the greatest thing I had in my life, and that was Becky and the boys.
That's so good.
That's what I would
That's
have done
so good.
differently.
How do you think for somebody listening, how do you think they check their energy? Like, what would be some things that maybe
Okay,
pop up?
that is so great. To me, let me be clear. Am I talking about physical energy? It could be.
Sure.
Which means check your diet, check your sleep pattern, check to see if you're getting any physical movement or exercise. I want to go into, I'm not talking about spiritual energy. That's an energy too. I think we have different types of energy.
Sure. Yeah.
I want to say emotional
I love
energy.
that. I think you're right.
I want to dial in on emotional energy. Now, and let's say emotional and intellectual energy. Intellect is how I think. And Becky and I think her intellect is greater than mine, but I don't feel bad about it. It's just mine is wired differently.
Sure.
So we both think differently. Now, what is emotions? It's not how I think, it's how I feel. And so you can know that Jude or Becky's energy is running on fumes or running on empty when I begin to overreact because the salt shaker is in the pantry instead of the table.
Right.
Or, and come on, it's usually not if your child comes home and it's something that's very critical or major. It's like adrenaline kicks in
100%.
and you deal with it.
100%,
And normally you are a boss.
Right.
It's the overreaction to the things that shouldn't matter.
Good.
That
good.
means the fumes are low.
Right.
And that's what I would say. That there were too many times. Oh, this is the way I would describe it, because we lived in Issaquah. The church was in Kirkland, Washington State. And it was about a 25-mile drive from where the boys went to school in church. And we were Jesus guys. For I'd say a good 16 miles.
Yeah.
It was the last 7.
Yeah.
18 miles, we had it. That one of the boys kind of hit another boy, doing what kids do.
Right.
And then when you morph into trying to do all this stuff, energy's low.
Yeah.
Energy is low.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. I wish somehow, though, Gabrielle, in your car, if it is a petroleum, a gas car, it comes when the fuel 20 miles and the fuel light goes on.
Yeah.
Even in a Tesla or a battery operated car, it tells you have 10% battery in your trip. Your return home requires 13% battery. That's not light. You have to become that gas light coming on.
For sure.
And how is, okay, so Jude didn't make the basket, or John forgot his art project, or Jake hit John. Are you overreacting?
Sure.
I think are you acting in a way that's your lesser self, not your best self? Let's quote Abraham Lincoln. I think everyone has an angel and a demon. Is it your angel self or your demon self?
Yeah.
When Jude's demon is reacting, his emotions are low. I want to quote one other person, Watchman Nee. I love him. And Watchman Nee says, when the emotions are stirred up, the conscience, please get this.
Very good.
The conscience is robbed its normal standard of judgment. I would say today, from through to the house of Roberts, from and through the house of Roberts, I think we need to raise our children and lead our families with conscience. But many times that is made void and null because our emotions have been stirred up, because they have been denied. And now we hear an overuse. I need some me time.
Right.
Yeah, that's not a joke you made. Now, if your whole
100%.
life is about me time, no, you're just flat out selfish, okay?
100%.
And you're broken.
Right.
But I'm talking about being a parent is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And this is all I know. You could get a medical degree. You could become a lawyer. You could be a physicist, a scientist, create anything, put a human being in outer space. But becoming a healthy, good parent, there's no degree.
Yeah.
It's going to take a loving marriage.
Oh, man.
But it's going to take people who know how to recognize when their energy is low.
Yeah.
And I would say that was a mistake of Jude
Yeah.
and Becky.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's easy to identify like when my energy is low. Like you said, you're overreacting. You make extreme statements. You put extreme discipline to like a very small thing. Well, you do this. Well, no TV for 2 months. You know what I mean? And now obviously I'm like, crap. I got to follow through on that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's the truth.
That's actually a punishment for me.
But like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
over, and so you like these extreme punches. And I find too, you're more likely to speak negatively to their identity as opposed to dealing with the incident.
100%.
Because you're low, right? So all of a sudden you're
100%.
saying things like, "What's wrong with you? Why can't?" And it's like,
100%.
whoa, like that, and it like that's not how you deal with that. But because you're low, like so, those are the things. Like when you discipline, you speak to the identity in a positive way and you correct the behavior. But when you're low, you just attack the identity of it. And I know like those are those moments where like if you've ever said to your parent and you've had those moments, you're like, man, I'm better than that. Yeah, guess what?
Yeah,
your soul's low. You're low. Like you are better than this. And the reason why is because speak to your identity. That's not who you are. You're not that kind of parent. That's not what you do. You just allowed you became a little more immature. You went down to their level. Like your kid went down the crazy train, like losing their emotions and going crazy, and you just went with them into that black hole, as opposed to being like, nope, we're not going there.
Sure.
So I think you're right. There are things, and I think your spouse also is one of those people that like I would be like, look, can you please like tell me when I'm overreacting? Because sometimes you get that out of body experience. I have those moments where in the midst of overreacting, I can feel myself going,
right.
You are. This is Michael. What are you doing right now? Stop. Stop. Like, but then sometimes it's good. Like where I've told Gabrielle, I said, hey, look, because I feel like there was a time where times where I felt like it was like overly aggressive, like or just like overly mean at times, and I'm like, I don't want to be that way, but sometimes I don't know if I've crossed that line. Like I want to make sure they understand like the
I do think, Michael, we need that.
Yeah.
And that Becky's like a third base coach. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, but I also think not only when you overreact, let's play offensive ball with that.
Very good.
How do you, what puts fuel in your tank emotionally?
Yeah.
For Becky, she is a people person. Her tank, her battery, like a Tesla car, she goes to supercharging station if she's around people. And many people think I'm a total extrovert, but for me, I need some alone time.
Sure.
When you have 3 kids or you have 4 kids in your house, you have to figure out where is my charging station.
Very good.
And so for me, I had to get up in the morning without noise. Becky is a type of genius. She could study and have a prayer time with all hell breaking loose, things. I couldn't do that. I needed, my charging station was quiet. I think we have got to see what, not authentically, but really what lastingly fills our battery. Because I think where we have the tendency when we're being drained quickly, we artificially charge our batteries. Maybe sugar.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I love cupcakes. I love Coca-Cola. I love Snickers bars. But what would happen, I would momentarily amp up only to have a deeper crash. And so for some of us, now, like for example, I wish Becky and I had energy talks early on. I really do. We talked about so many things. And you know what? When you do not discuss how you're made and manufactured, you will do what you said, identity conversation. Well, that's your parents. Well, that's your parents. Well, that's your culture. Or that different thing. Or I have faith. And I think we needed to say, hey, it seems like you're medicating in a way that's not healthy. And for me, it was food. Food had become my substance of choice. Instead of sitting back evaluating I think this is a good way to know the proper charging state. We need to evaluate what's going on in the life. My pastor was diagnosed with an incurable disease. The boys, John and Jude, were entering into adolescence. Can I say, your children need your optimum energy from infancy to 5. You could breathe a little bit and kind of run on a lower battery, not too low. But when they turn 12 to 13, you better amp up, because there's 2 times in a human being's life where hormones are going to, in a raging way, flood through their body. Infancy to 2, and then through adolescence. And I was so good from infancy to 2. But when Jude and John and Jay needed Becky and I, we had so many things that were happening outside the home. In the way she recharged, in the way I recharged, was 2 different charging stations. I wish we would have thought about that. And cupcakes, I love them. I would eat 6 of them. I became pregnant with cupcake and Snickers. But you know what? It was short-lived. If I had that to do, and I want to say something, I needed a hobby. Please hear me. If you're a parent and you make your children your hobby, you've made a grave mistake. I did it. You should ask me why I did it. I think it was fear and not faith. Where Jude needed a hobby, whether that was a Harley, whether that was golf, whether that was running, whether that was hiking. I needed a physical, not just a time with Christ, not just a spiritual time, but mentally, physically. When I came back, I went from 10% battery to at least 30 to 40 to 50% battery. And if we're waiting for that once a year, twice a year vacation, then that's not a lifestyle. I want lifestyle charging stations. I believe managing our energy is so important. For example, a couple years ago, Becky has a Tesla, and she calls it Lulu. I call it Lucifer. I hate that car. I'm not against Teslas, but for example, if you go on a vacation, like really an extended driving vacation, going from California to Atlanta, Georgia, you could run in, gas station, get a bunch of junk food, get in, and you could do it quickly. When you have an electric car, you have to put triple the amount of planning. So before we did it, Becky went to AAA, and she said, babe, we have to stop here or there. And if we didn't, we'd never make it to the end of the journey. I think what I want to say to homes, what is your end goal? It's really good. What is the end goal called this same journey, House of Roberts? And I would say for me, the end goal is that first of all, Becky and I are in love. We're fulfilled. We are leaving our carbon footprint, I think that's how you say it, on the earth. And that our children are independent, self-sufficient, they're giving back, and they're leaving, what I would say, a Christocentric carbon footprint on the earth. And we learned this, we had to sometimes take a break. When you go, you could fill in the car up with gas, run in, use a restroom, get some snacks, and you could do that in a matter of 15 minutes. Sometimes you had to, the charging station, you had to wait an hour and a half. And then you would have to stop, and it slowed you down. And get this word, it made you intentional in your mitigation of this long journey. And I would say being a family is not a short journey. It is a long journey that's going to require that AAA assistant that maps out. I wish we would have mapped it out a little bit more. I think we wouldn't have had 11 different sports extracurricular activities. I think we would have slowed down. I think we would have realized stopping and refueling was a consistent date night. I think we would have known, if I do this, it's going to deplete Becky of energy. If she does this, it will deplete Jude. You understand? It needs more planning. And I think people think, the reason why I love House of Roberts, they think being good parents, building a great loving family or home is just going to happen. It is not going to be an accident.
No. It's incredibly intentional work. I love what you said, because I was thinking, even when you first brought it up, like how can you tell when your tank is low? And it would be so awesome if we had that meter, right? But you don't, essentially from the physical standpoint of things. But I think you nailed it right there. I think one of the ways that you're able to tell when your energies are low is if you have space to be able to tell. Sometimes we're moving so fast, we actually don't know how much trauma is happening to our body, our soul, our spirit, our finances, all the things, because we're moving so fast. It's an intentional work to know where your energy levels are at. And you have to have space to be able to say, hey, how am I? And I think even for everybody listening, it's like, when's the last time you had time to ask yourself that question? Mm-hmm. To sit silent for an hour and a half, the Tesla's charging, and you're saying, hey, am I good? Like, when's the last time, we went on a date? When's the last time we randomly took time off? When's the last time I did something for myself? I think that's a good check-in, because it is intentional. It doesn't just happen. And I think as well, it takes discernment. We're Jesus people, so it's like, we're not doing this thing by ourselves. Right. And I think a lot of times we try to do this life, and the life God gave us, the breath God gave us in our own energy, in our own way. And that's a very easy, subtle thing that I think that we can do. And so I know even God's been challenging us in this season, where he's taken essentially a lot of things out of our hands. He's like, now you're going to let me put what I want back into it. And that's actually really hard, because you're in your mind, you think we're all leaders here. So you're like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go here, and the kids are going to be part of this. And I'm going to just, work it all up, the calendar all up, make it happen. And that will fail. Yeah. That will fail.
It may win in the moment.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the end of the journey. 100%. And what was the end of the journey? Becky and I drove from Ventura, California to Atlanta, Georgia to see Jake speak at a great youth conference. And what was the goal? We wanted to see Jake. Yeah. We wanted to be a part of that. Yeah. And plus we wanted to just be with one another. And I do too. I wish that we had a meter saying battery is low, fuel is low. I would say you need to know what type of car you are. Yeah. And if you are a petroleum or a gas operator, how do you fill your car up? And I remember, I want to say this, being a parent is so eternal. When my son Jude, he was a man, he was working at the church, and him and I were not seeing eye to eye. And I think what's really interesting is when children are like, I want to use 1 or 2, I would say the 2-year-old stage, when autonomy is kicking in. I do it myself.
Right,
no.
Right.
I mean, that infamous word, no, I do it myself. I see parents trying to have these deep conversations with a 2-year-old. And it's like, no, you need basic boundaries.
Yeah, good.
And you need some type of discipline. And I'm not talking about just physical discipline, but there needs to be consequences. Yeah. Then what's interesting, when they become adolescents or teenagers, conversation should be a part of it. But now we try to do the opposite and treat them like a 2-year-old.
Sure.
And I was doing that because of low energy.
Sure.
And Jude and I, we got in an argument. We were not seeing eye to eye. And it was like the old buck and the young buck. And the next day, when I got up, I saw something. You see, life is not forever for any of us. I don't care your capacity. I don't care your ability to manage your energy, your time, all of that, your ministry, your job, is that we all have so many breaths in this being of ours. And believe it or not, you and Michael, Becky and I, we won't always be married in eternity. Now, this is a Christian point of view. I will be married to Jesus. Becky will be married to Jesus. But I went to Jude that next day. I said, Jude, on the new earth, there's something that will be constant. You will be the son of this fallen Adam. So that means that's an eternal relationship. We should not have a very limited, finite broken earthly perspective, we should do whatever we could to preserve that.
So good.
And we're close. I mean, I'm close to my son, but I do think energy in knowing the end journey.
It's really good.
What is the goal of that?
It's really good.
Very good. What's like that? What Proverbs, without vision, people perish,
Right.
and that word perish is one of the words for that is it's a preservative, like vision preserves. So it allows you to like preserve the time you're in as you think about where we are going. And I think that's what happens. We get a more short-sighted in like what's the goal here,
Right.
and it's beyond getting a
like
student
survival.
into college or getting them their first great job or getting them out of the house. It's beyond that, right? And I think when you see it from that kind of perspective, when you see it from a God's perspective, which is generational, like God doesn't even think in generation; He thinks in generations.
Right.
God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yes.
It's what we're doing. Because I think sometimes we try to take on the pressure of accomplishing something in one generation that God is saying, I will do through multiple generations.
Totally.
And so when you try to, it's just like anything, right? When you feel like you're on a short timeline, you rush and try to make everything happen right away. But once you realize, no, like God has a part and I have a part to play in this.
Yeah.
And I'm not supposed to do it all. Therefore, I'm going to make sure I just run my legs. Kind of like that, like we do the relay and I'm going to run my leg and I'm going to hand the baton off and they're going to do their part. And so I'm just going to make sure I have a good timing.
Yeah, I love that analogy because I think some could view life, marriage, family, children as A, a relay race, B, a marathon. I take that back, 100-yard dash or a marathon. No, it's a relay race.
Really good.
That it's like what you just said, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And it may not, all the things I dream may not be a reality in my lifetime. But I do believe, Michael and Gabrielle, it can be a reality in my lifeline.
Very good.
And I think instead of trying to create a certain type of person, and what I mean that, my son will be a football player, my daughter will be a cheerleader, my children will be high academics. Those are all great things. Those are good things. They're points of success. And many people think, did you raise your sons to be pastors? And I can honestly tell you, no. That was never a point of my thinking. When I thought how I was raising, shaping, and I was very intentional. I was more intentional than anyone I know. It wasn't whether Jude, John, and Jake would become pastors. It was what type of men will they be? What type of father will they be? Before that, what type of husband? What type of friend? What type of really a man? And I could say, as I look at Jude, John, and Jake, I'm very proud who they have become, not just what they're doing.
Very good.
Your doing could be medicine, business, entertainment, many things, small business, corporate business, and you could still be successful, but who you become is lesser than what you're doing. And I would say I am proud of they're becoming.
Hey everyone, I hope you are enjoying this conversation that we're having with our senior pastor, Pastor Jude. It was so good. We didn't intend it to be 2 episodes, but we felt like it was so much good content that we are making a part 1 and a part 2. So you just listened to part 1. Next time we post, it will be part 2 of our conversation. So it's going to be incredible. We can't wait to post it. So come back next time at House of Roberts Podcast. We will see you then.